Hi everyone, so TR here and thanks for dropping by and watching my video. So today I want to talk about the game Hearthstone, but mainly focusing on Arena. So today in this video I want to make an Arena guide in order to help those people who are still struggling with the Arena runs. So in this discussion I will be talking about a number of things. So first off would be the deck curve, the next the value stats, then card effects, then the AoE cards. So hopefully you enjoy the video and let's get on to the discussion. So whenever you're selecting cards during your arena run, make sure to always keep in mind what kind of deck curve are you aiming for. So my tip here is that aim for at least 60% or 70% of your card deck that are within 2 to 4 mana cost cards. Then 30% to 40% of it would go into the 5 cost, 6 cost, or higher cards. Mainly because that you want to have enough cards to control the early game. Because if you manage to control the board in the early game, more or less you can practically win the game. So that's why it's important that you manage to control the board early. So a bad example that I have here is a mage deck, which has a very high number of cards in the 6 cost range. So what happens here is that there is a good chance that at the early game, most of the cards that I may draw would be all late game. So I won't be able to draw any of my early game. So which means that I will lose control of the early game. If I lose that and I'm not managed to recover within the mid game, then more or less I lose the game. And that's what happened to my mage. I practically won only around 4 games and I lost mainly because I have too many late game cards. So next we're going to be talking about value stat cards. So whenever you're selecting your cards, do keep in mind which cards are stat efficient just by the stats alone without looking into their battle cries and so forth. So I've listed down the ideal stats that I feel that are most efficient for their casting cost. So for example, the one cost stats, I feel that 2/2s and 3/2s are the most efficient, mainly because they're able to trade off with the other mana cost cards, be it 2 cost or 3 cost potentially. So the Flame Imp and Mistress of Mixtures are good examples of the one cost cards. They are very efficient in terms of their stats, but of course there are downsides in their card effects. But overall, if you manage to cast them at the first turn or maybe even the second turn, they're still more or less efficient and able to trade off with the other cards that your enemies can throw at you at the first 2 or 3 turns in the game. For 2 cost cards, I feel that 2/3 and 3/2s are more or less okay. So you just need to look into what are the potential card effects that they have. Now for 3 cost stats, I feel that 3/4 and 4/3 are the best stat cards, mainly because 3/4 cards can trade with any of the 2 cost or 1 cost cards and some of the 3 cost cards and still survives. So that means that it can still trade off with another card. So potential trade-offs would be 1.5 or maybe 2 cards in total. So that's a potential for 3/4 stats. For 4/3 stats, they're good mainly because they can also trade off with 4 cost cards and all of the 3 cost cards, 2 cost cards, and 1 cost cards. For the 4 cost stats, I feel that 4/5 and 5/4 are the best. Mainly the same reason of the 3/4 and 4/3. They can trade off with multiple cards or they can trade off with the higher cost cards. For the 5 cost cards, I feel that 5/6 is the best statted one. So a good example here would be the Pit Fighter. So it's a muscle card with no text on it. So basically, if it's just drop it down, more or less it can trade off with any of the cards that's thrown at you at 5 cost or lower. So there are only very few cards that can actually contest Pit Fighter in terms of the cost and the value that it can provide. So bottom line, always aim to trade at least more than 1 card. That way you'll be able to trade off well and you'll be able to control the board. So next we're going to be talking about card effects. I broke it down into several categories, which mainly are Battlecry, Divine Shield, Taunt minions, Death Rattle minions. So first we're going to look into Battlecry minions. So the first priority that when you're selecting cards with Battlecries, check what kind of value can these Battlecries give you. Alright, so for example here is that some of the Battlecry minions that I have can deal direct damage. So the namely North Sea Kraken, Fire Elemental, and Bomb Squad, they can deal 5 damage, 3 damage, and 4 damage, which can potentially trade off with a card when they're casted. And they can trade their body with another card in the next turn. So that's giving a lot of value to these cards so they can trade at least 1.5 to 2 cards, which is very good. And that's why they are must picks whenever you see them. Now, of course, for Bomb Squad, you can opt not to, it depends, but I only advise to get maybe one of it. because the downside is that it deals 5 damage to your hero and it's a poorly statted card. But the battle cry is pretty good, so if you do find one and there are no better cards, do pick it up. It's pretty good. Now, other good effects would be AoE, so namely the Abyssal Enforcer and the Corrupted Seer. So Abyssal can do 3 damage across all all the board, and Corrupted Seer can deal 2 damage across all the board, which are very good if in case you don't manage to find any AoE cards for your deck. So make sure to get them. No other good Battlecry cards would be summoning other minions like the Double Gangster and Faithless Summoner. So Double Gangster, you can actually do combos with it. Maybe you can buff the Double Gangster or you can actually evolve combo them. So I do have some examples later which I can show in later in the video that evolving Double Gangster is really worth it. Now, other good cards would be Aldor Peacekeeper and Craze Alchemist. So Aldor reduces the minion's attack to 1. So this is pretty good. It can actually destroy any big minions. So definitely do pick this one if you're a paladin. Defender of Argus is also pretty good, provided that you have minions on the board. So this can save you many times in the game and it can do good trade-offs, especially with the taunt +1/+1 buff to your other minions. Now, for taunt minions and divine shield minions, these are more or less a staple requirement in your deck, mainly because there's not much healing that's going on in arena runs because you can't really choose to get healing when you're selecting your cards. So if you do find taunt cards, do definitely get them, but my main recommendation to get are taunt cards like Bog Creeper, Fen Creeper, Grime Street Protector, but the best ones are Sunwalker and Psychotron, mainly because they have Divine Shields, and it's guaranteed that they will be able to trade off with at least 2 cards, because the enemy will have to do something or cast something to actually remove the Divine Shield and have their minion attack. Now for Divine Shields, I would recommend to get Argent Horse Rider, Argent Commander because they have charge. So it pretty much guarantees that they can trade off with 2 cards even if they're poorly statted. So for Death Rattle, the cards that I value the most are those cards with a Death Rattle that summons new minions. Mainly because it still gives you board presence even if the cards gets destroyed. So those examples are Harvest Golem and Savannah Highmane. So there are other cards in Hunter that actually does a similar effect. So if you do see those, then definitely try to get those as well if you're a Hunter. Now other good effects would be under his City Huckster, which adds a random class card to your hand. It's a bit slow, but more or less the effect should be good. Then for Abomination, because it deals AoE damage across the board, which is pretty good, and it has taunt. So next we're going to be talking about AoE cards. So make sure that you try to get at least 1 or 2 of these cards if it's offered to you during your arena selection. And also do keep in mind that the potential that your enemy may have these cards as well. So you should play around maybe for cards like Swipe or Flame Strike or even Hellfire. So try to play around those. Make sure that whenever you drop cards, make sure that the stats of your cards would not play around the damage that Swipe or Flame Strike or Consecration can do to you. So I also added in a weapon section. So if in case you do run into a weapon in your card selection, do try to get at least one of them. They're very good utility cards in a sense that you can use them to trade off their minions instead of the face. Mainly because, of course, the goal for Arena is that you want to establish board presence. So you can use the weapons to remove their board so you can establish yours. And lastly, for hero priority picks, I would always pick Mage and Rogue over the other heroes, mainly because they're able to ping off 1 health minions. Then next, I would pick Paladin and Shaman because they're able to establish minions using their hero powers. Then I classified Priest, Warlock, and Hunter, and maybe Warrior into one category because they couldn't ping off 1 health minions. And based on my experience, I really have a hard time trying to establish boards with them. Unfortunately, even if Druid is able to kill off 1 health minions, I never really had very good experiences using Druid as my arena run hero. So that's why I'm putting it as a low priority for me. But maybe next time, if I do try it out again, maybe I have a good run. But for the time being, this is how I always pick my arena runs. So hopefully this would help you out. So now I'm going to show a couple of highlights on where I lost and won against some mage and rogue. So hope you enjoy it and see you at the end of the video. And so those are the tips and guides that I can give you for the arena run, and hopefully it can help you in the near future. If you enjoyed the content, please do leave a like and subscribe, and if not, there's a dislike button there that you can press. And please leave a comment if you have any suggestions or anything that you want me to discuss. And again, thanks guys for watching the video. TR out.